Okay, this is the MLA from Miramichi, forgot the last name, Miramichi, whatever, Michelle Conroy. And she mentioned my name. Somebody told me today inside the legislature. I wasn't around today, but it's interesting and funny in a way. Okay, listen to this. This is the third time this happened. Pam Lynch did it once, and David Kuhn did it during COVID. So this is the third time my name is mentioned inside the ledge. So let's listen.
I received a message a couple weeks ago from a paramedic pleading for help because they feel hopeless. We had 8 overdoses in one day. There are heart attacks and overdoses almost every day in my riding and in a lot of ridings right across the province. And what's being done? What funds are being put into our current recovery centers to help them more? Where's the addiction centers that we committed to? That was mentioned a year ago in the throne speech, and yet again in this throne speech. Last year, the Premier convinced the vast majority of New Brunswickers that she had the answers, that they knew how to fix the province, to fix healthcare. But now we're asking, where's the real plan to fix healthcare? Where's the timelines, the accountability, and most importantly, where are the results? They seem to have all the answers when they're sitting on this side of the floor, criticizing the work of our government, despite the fact that we were showing very positive results. But all we've been seeing from this government in the last year is more debt, more homeless, more struggling, higher cost of living, more smoke and mirrors, and very, very little results. Hope is not policy, Mr. Speaker. Press releases don't heal people. Let's talk about housing. As the opposition critic for housing, Mr. Speaker, I need to speak on our worsening housing crisis. Housing is a top priority in my riding. It's the most calls we get every day. And I'm going to first give my appreciation to our NB Housing team in Miramichi. They are always so responsive and literally work miracles. So many countless times that someone reaches out for help and they would have ended up in their car or on the street. And we make a call and they make things happen. And just yesterday, I was writing this speech yesterday morning, and our NB Housing had help too. So I can't thank them enough for everything that they do.
Now you notice it's very quiet in the opposition, sign of respect. But once you mention my name, I'm going to keep on playing this.
But people don't know what goes on behind the scenes and how much work they do. They're incredible people. But as the calls go up every month from my office, I can only imagine what they're having to deal with in their offices. And there's nothing harder to have to tell somebody that you can't do anything for them. Housing's not just an economic issue. It's the foundation for every other part of life. Without a safe and affordable home, it's almost impossible to hold a job and care for your family or focus on your health. In my riding, I'm very happy to see the development over the past 3 or 4 years with new apartments and units, and happy to see this government is continuing the work that we did from our government, because nothing is driving the cost of living crisis harder than the price of rent and the lack of supply. We sat and listened to the Minister of Housing last week with many plans on how to tackle this issue, which did sound very positive, but just how much longer are we going to have to wait for the results? The lack of resources for addiction is causing more homelessness. The minister says they're working on finding solutions, but he doesn't seem to know what the real issues are. He talked to our friend Charles LeBlanc, the blogger, the other day, and he told him that we have 1,300 New Brunswickers living on the street right now in tents, and that they don't choose to be there. And this is squarely the root cause of the problem is housing. It seems that he's very out of touch with what's happening in the province and on the streets. Yes, we have many people waiting for affordable housing, but a lot of them are couch surfing, and some of them on the streets and living in their cars. But there are a vast majority that do choose to live on the streets. And yes, they choose to be in a tent. And it is totally true. You can ask them. Not in the, I would want to become an addict and I want to be living on the streets when I get older, but their mental health and their past experiences and their traumas, that's where they find themselves. And is because under addiction, absolutely no, it's wrong. It's absolutely correct. And it is because that under addiction, this is all they know how to do. There is a strong connection between mental health and addiction to homelessness. Back in 2022, the current Minister of Housing, as a municipal councillor, stated that they were fighting with a hand tied behind their back, and the current wait list for housing in New Brunswick was over 6,000. Today, he is now the minister a year into his mandate, and the wait list has ballooned over 13,000 households and still rising. In 2023, the Minister of Housing says we need to fund affordable housing. Can we, you had your turn to talk, Minister. It's mine right now. In 2023, the Minister of Housing says we need to fund newfound affordable housings at all levels of affordability, fund incentives to get more developers into the affordable market, fund wraparound services and make people successful, and fund mental health, emerge shelters, and harm reductions to get people off the street. Yes, he was totally correct. But just last week, he said, and I quote, "The vast majority of people living on the street is because of a housing problem, not because of a drug problem. And when we can provide them with this basic foundation for life, then they lose their reason to use drugs." So basically, is he saying just give them a house and they'll get themselves off drugs? Because that's not the case, Mr. Speaker. There are many more living in tents because they are unable to look after themselves and look after an apartment. I have personally, on many occasions, 3 off the top of my head, have helped people get into apartment straight from the shelter with the help of Miramichi Housing Solutions and NB Housing and the fine people from the Harvest House and Hospice. We have fully furnished and fully clothed them and gave them everything they need into a brand new apartment just to find them out. Just to find them back on the streets a few months later, leaving all of their belongings behind. One gentleman was there for less than 3 months. So yes, I do know what I'm talking about, Minister. He was there for only 3 months, went back to the streets and overdosed in the woods and died. And that's after being housed with brand new furniture and a brand new apartment because he couldn't live in an apartment. Another friend of mine that when I went to school with, she had an apartment fully furnished for her, and her parents were going to look after her kids, and they had everything paid for, and she decided to go back to the streets, and her parents are now raising her kids and let the apartment go. This is because when we give them a place to live without the proper resources and support, we are setting them up for failure. And that's no fault of their own. Most people are addicted because of trauma and life challenges and mental health, not because they live in a tent. And throwing the responsibility of renting a unit when they don't know how to take care of it is just another failure that causes them to feel more defeated, more depressed, and in some cases suicidal. So,
oh my God.
No, just giving them a home does not mean they're going to be able to take care of themselves and get themselves off drugs. And yes, in some cases, when given the choice of going to a shelter, some suffering from mental health and addictions will choose not to because that's all they know. But the very unfortunate reality is there are many that are crying for help. They want out of addictions, but have nowhere to turn. People living with addictions are getting turned away from detox because it is full and they can only stay there a few days. Because there aren't enough treatment beds when they decided that they had enough.
Point of order.
There we go.
Mr. Speaker, I would remind, Mr. Speaker, I would remind
the chair will now recognize the point of order.
I would remind the Speaker of the House's direction that we are to be respectful. Chirping is one thing, but being disrespectful is another. And I would ask for your consideration in the behavior of members opposite.
Thank you, Opposition House Leader. And I just want to remind people here that the member from Miramichi-East has the floor. There's a debate on. The debate it should occur when you're standing and you have the floor. and there have been some comments back and forth. I think that we have to respect each other. We're all honorable members, and whenever we speak, it's a reflection on who we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I hit a nerve with the Minister of Housing. When people don't receive the support when they need it and where they're at, they end up back in the vicious cycle with a heavy burden of just one more failure. We have to help people when they need it. And more funding needs to go into addiction recovery and treatment centers than to harm reduction and supporting their addiction. I was very happy to hear the minister talk last week about funding nonprofits and transitional housing. See, I was getting to the for good part, Mr. Minister. You just had to wait a couple minutes. These organizations are doing incredible work, and they're filling the gaps in our system. And I hope the minister's visiting and traveling the province and visiting them all, and I appreciate the millions of dollars that are going into helping this. People suffering addiction need compassion, and they need love, and they need guidance, and they need us to understand the layers of issues. And in order to end the vicious cycle and the vicious revolving door of the addictions, they need wraparound services where and when they are ready to receive the help. And with addictions come crime, and we're seeing more and more crime and theft in our communities. More theft, more break-ins, more mischiefs. Almost every community has created their own neighborhood watch pages on social media. People aren't feeling safe in their own homes or their own downtowns. We had a meeting a few weeks ago that was attended by hundreds of people, standing room only, and even more online, residents, business owners, and kids. And it's not right when people fear walking downtown. The Minister of Public Safety visited many regions around the province and took concerns, but there wasn't much in the throne speech on a plan to fight the crime or the answers. Now, if we switch to gas and heating, this government promised to lower the price of gas. I remember the Premier, when she was on this side of the floor, saying that she would scrap the carbon adjuster. Over and over, she said the first thing she would do was drop the Higgs carbon adjuster and save New Brunswickers 7 cents a litre with a stroke of a pen.
Fast forward a little bit.
Well, Madam Speaker, a year later, she still is promising this. Another delay, lost her pen, yeah.
I'll leave it there.
Another broken promise. Only this promise, if she keeps this promise, she puts many small businesses at risk of being out of promise. We sat in committees and debates last year, and all the experts are strongly advising against the removal of the carbon adjuster because they will be putting gas stations out of business very quickly. So another question of the day, does this government break yet another promise, or does it remove this safety carbon adjustment and close small businesses? When asked about the last week here in the question period, the minister responsible for Opportunity Brunswick, in true Liberal form, blames the U.S. and the president. Elbows up. They need to start taking accountability for what they're doing here on both levels of government. Now on to transportation and infrastructure. More cuts. I talked to our local department in Miramichi and was told their budget had been significantly cut. And because of our local department had to make cutbacks, like not getting roadsides and ditches cut. So is this going to affect our plowing in the winter? These cuts are costing safety concerns. And speaking of safety concerns, one of the biggest cuts in my riding, of course, is the Miramichi Bridge.
Shameful.
This was something that was going to be removed before when our government was in, but when confronted and explained, the previous government changed the plans and put the sidewalk back because it was the right thing to do. And according to over 7,000 people that signed the petition for this sidewalk, and there are many that agree with that, not having a safe sidewalk is putting people's lives at risk, because I will guarantee you that people that have to cross that bridge to get to work and go shop will walk across that on the outside of that white line, and someone's going to get hurt. And it was signed by the member opposite.
He knows.
Yeah, standing up for Miramichiers.
Safety.
Over the summer, Madam Speaker, I saw someone walking that bridge almost every time I crossed it. And I'm sure there would be more people walking it if they felt it was safe. The government did a couple counts, Mr. Speaker, over the last year, where they say they only had 20 people walking the bridge. Well, the first count was done in March, when there was still snow and ice on the bridge, so that wouldn't have been very many accurate. And the second one was done in the summer. There was a sign on one side of the bridge that said sidewalk closed to pedestrians. And there was 2 students on the other side wearing orange pennies, so it kind of looked like the bridge was closed. But even though we found out that it wasn't, and they were able to walk across, and they did, so I'm sure they wouldn't have had a very accurate number. But even with these efforts, we were told by them that there was over 100 people in a couple days that they did this study. Yet the minister, again, was speaking with Charles LeBlanc, tells him there was only 20 when they did the study in the summer. I think it's very interesting, Madam Speaker, that the blogger seems to get more answers from these ministers here than we can here in question period on the floor of this legislature. In public accounts, DTI department said the sidewalk of the Centennial Bridge was dead in the water, but on the sidewalk of the legislature, the DTI minister says that it's not off the table. So Miramichiers want to know, which is it? And the secondary route for Miramichi. With the bridge due to be closed very soon for the deck replacement, the work on the secondary road.
Anyway, I think it's pretty funny having more answers on the sidewalk outside than inside the chambers. So anyway, she's always been straightforward and direct. That's why when I told the Liberals, when Kevin Bang Bang Vickers arrived, hey, I shot somebody, vote for me, when he was leader of the Liberal Party, I said, you think she's going to beat Michelle Conroy? I said, she's going to slaughter him. And that's exactly what happened. And it'll be a sad day when Michelle leaves. I mean, she's good. And thanks for the mention.